This is autumn, the most beautiful season of all, where the forest starts to get its beautiful colors of orange and brown. It's the season where you start to see some wild animals in the forest as well. The beautiful season where you can hear also the noise of the motorway nearby. Anyway, but that's also the season where mushrooms are popping up. And this is fascinating because mushrooms, they are fascinating because mushrooms are actually, of course, edible. Some of them can be very tasty, but they also come in a whole variety of shapes, a whole variety of colors, a whole variety also of smells and tastes. They are also always a surprise. When you go to the forest, you are never 100% sure of what you will find and where you will find them. It's a little bit like a treasure hunt. Anyway, what I propose you now is that just come with me, venture into the woods, and let's search for mushrooms together and try to identify them, to understand who they are, what they are doing, why do we find them on this specific place. Good, let's get started. And we are lucky, because look at what we found here. Looks interesting, it's pretty large. This is my finger in comparison. So let's try to do that. Trying to cut as much as possible below the stipe, so that we really see the shape of the stipe, but not too much in depth, because then we are cutting, otherwise damaging the mycelium, which is the vegetative part of the mushroom. And here we have it. Beautiful. You see that first of all you have pores here, little holes, instead of gills. And that tells us already that it has high chances to be a bolete. We see that the color of the pores are yellow, a little bit of orange here, or let's say brown, rusty color we say. And here we have a nice ring, which looks a little bit like a sock, like it's going up like this, and then it's around the stipe. The hat, or the cap here, is actually very sticky. It's like butter or even mucus. And you can see that, you can see that with this sort of herb here that is sticking to it. It means that we are already in a group of boletes that are the group of the Suillus, so the Suillus, all these boletes that are sticky on their cap. Many different species, most of them, almost all actually, I think, with conifers. You have also the pores here, the tubes, that are a little bit going down in the stipe. It's not the case with all boletes, so this is also a characteristic here. A little bit, you see, they are going a little bit along the stipe. And you see the flesh is of this beautiful yellow color. You see also how the pores are formed. You see that it's in fact plenty of little tubes that are going downwards. Another very important point about mushroom identification is that you can use your sense of smell and your sense of taste. Our taste is a little bit risky sometimes for some poisonous species, but sense of smell is no problem. You have plenty of different smells. Some smell like garlic, some smell like cheese, some smell like pesticides, some smell like coconut. So let's smell this one and see if it helps us to identify. So also, it's a bit acidic and a little bit like rubbery smell, so slight rubbery acidic smell. Yes, we found another one that is so common that it's so boring to see it all the time. You probably have seen it, but you don't know what it is. So let's look at it together. Where is it? Do you see it? Do you see it? Almost? Yes, you see it. Getting closer. And again, let's start by looking at our environment. This is again a spruce forest, very dark. And as we go down, 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 we see that the ground is actually full of mosses. And this species is very often associated with mosses. This is it. Calocera viscosa or Calocera cornea. You can see the size of it. If I put my finger next to it, it's relatively small. You can see also the texture. It's actually it's actually pretty rubbery, in fact. So if you try to pull it, and it's also quite viscous again, and that's why it's called Calocera viscosa. The color is of course very characteristic. This beautiful orange. We found something else, again in the middle of this spruce forest. Look at it with me. Do you see it? Yes, do you see it? Yeah, you see it very well. Yes, these very tiny little things here, they are much more interesting than the one on the left, and you will understand why in a second. What are all these tiny little things? Again, notice the environment. We are in a spruce forest and lots of moss around. Now we are speaking about very small mushrooms, because if you look at the size of the knife nearby, we are speaking about a stipe that is less than a millimeter in diameter. Let's remove the twigs around and look at the mushroom more in detail. You see how it's moving? The stipe is actually very fragile. I'll remove it gently, and this is what we have here. So you see, the shape is with a very long stipe. Let me take a knife to show you. So the shape is with a very long stipe for a very small hat, and the hat is pointy. This is something that guides us towards the group of Mycena. Mycena are mushrooms that all have more or less this shape, conical hat, gills under the hat, and a very long stipe. And they are saprophytic, so they eat dead woods and dead branches, especially pine needles. So this is actually the substrate on which they thrive. Something very difficult to digest, but these mushrooms do it very well. But that's not the most interesting about this mushroom. The most interesting is what happens if you cut the stipe. You see, it is secreting some latex that is red, especially this dark red, like almost blood color. And this is why this species is called Mycena sanguinolenta, because it's what in Latin means bloody. If you look also at the cap itself, it is very small, and it has this kind of nipple in the middle, that is red, which gives us a hint about possible colors of the latex. And also very interesting to note is, for these species, the Mycena species in general, you can sometimes see by transparency from the top of the cap all the gills, and you see here all the gills from the cap. Where am I? I'm here. Hop là. You see all the different gills here. Sometimes when you walk in conifer forests, you will see some rounded orange spots on the ground. And these are often a very interesting species that we will look at right now. So, do you see them? Yeah, I start to see them now. See, we are getting closer and closer. Voilà. So, let's remove all the grass around and look at it together. Good. So first of all, an interesting thing about the color. You see the color? It's this orange, slight pale yellow that is actually looking very much like chanterelle, and that's why this mushroom is called the false chanterelle. Let's have a closer look. We cut a little bit under the stipe, and this is what we see. The mushroom actually has this very beautiful pale orange color. You see also that the stipe is a little bit velvety. You see it on the sides, especially on the margin. So a little bit hairy. Also characteristic of this species. The fact that the margin is very much lighter as well. And you see the stipe is very orange. The gills are very thin and very close to each other. Also characteristic, and also the shape. You see it's a bit like a funnel, and the gills are going very low in the stipe. The gills are actually making forks. They are ramifying. They are not just straight, they ramify here and there, which is very characteristic as well of this species. What about the smell now of this one? So we smell under the gills. Oh man, this smell. Outstanding. It's not called the false chanterelle for nothing. It actually smells exactly like the chanterelle. This a bit fruity, or some say of little plum smell of the chanterelle. And this last species is also a saprophyte. It is growing on dead needles mostly. You see it here? This is another beautiful example of Hygrophoropsis aurantiaca. See, if I remove the debris around, somebody already passed here to verify that it was not chanterelle. How beautiful is this? Look at that. How perky color, orange, bright orange. And there are more here. They are very common in pine forests, as this one. The beauty of nature, the quietness of the forest in autumn, with the motorway nearby. Yeah, this is beautiful, man. I was about to leave, thinking, okay, we won't see anything else today interesting. Then we fall on this. This is beautiful. This is Sparassis crispa. Alors, again, this mushroom is in a spruce forest. We are still in the same spruce forest, and we didn't move very far away from all the other mushrooms we found. This is a species that is associated with roots of conifers. We don't know exactly what is the lifestyle, and it is a species that is apparently a delicacy. I never tried myself, very tasty. It's very difficult to get rid of all the debris. You see that there are plenty of it. It grew, and by growing it agglomerated some pieces of twigs and stuff, which makes it difficult to clean. But once you manage to clean it, it's apparently very tasty. I wouldn't eat it though, because it's a rare species and is getting more and more rare every year. And we are not far away from the road, and well hidden behind the stump. What is this? This is quite big. This is Paxillus atrotomentosus. Look how beautiful this is from underneath. Atrotomentosus. Atro means black, tomentosus means hairy. In fact, the stipe here is very, very finely hairy and black at the same time. Also characteristic of Paxillus species is the margin that is very much rolled inwards. And also their gills are in between the chanterelle and the normal agaric type of mushrooms. See that instead of being very fine, they are very large, and often they are barely just folds of the hat. This is beautiful Paxillus atrotomentosus, a species that is mostly saprophytic on old stumps.